Only one thing was strange: to go on thinking as usual, to know, to realize that was, for the first moment, like the horror of a man buried alive awaking to his fate. Outside, my face came close to the glass again. I saw my mouth, the lips compressed, with the effort of understanding the axolotls. I was an axolotl, and now I knew instantly that no understanding was possible. Cortázar's Axolotl tells the story of a man whose visits to the aquarium of Jardin des Plantes turn into an obsession. Over time, he identifies so deeply with the axolotls that his consciousness transforms and his human form disappears. In this video, I will explore how the story develops mutability, the continuous potential for transformation. Mutability here is developed as a state where human and animal boundaries fade and observer and observed become interchangeable. I will examine three conventions: diction and repetition, imagery and symbolism, and contrast and shifts. Firstly, diction and repetition help us to understand the author's choice of words and his intentionality with recurrent vocabulary. For example, in one of the passages, the narrator describes the culmination of transformation by making use of carefully chosen vocabulary. He declares, "I am an axolotl for good now, and if I think like a man, it's only because every axolotl thinks like a man." Here, it is evident that Cortázar uses phrases like "for good now" to represent an inevitable and permanent transformation. Also, he highlights universal conditions, as in every axolotl thinks like a man, showing how inseparable creature and human actually are in the eyes of the main character. The narrator also shows us his fascination with stillness and quietness through the repeated use of closely related vocabulary, as in, "I stayed for hours watching them, observing their immobility. I felt it a lewdness to be peering at these silent and immobile figures. They continued to look at me, immobile." The narrator does not only admire stillness, but he is also absorbed into it. This stillness eventually becomes not only a transformative force, but also the very medium of the protagonist's mutation. Secondly, imagery and symbolism make the descriptions vivid and tangible. They provide a sensory approximation of what is being described, while also strengthening its meaning and making it more imaginable. For instance, in the passage, "The eyes of the axolotl spoke to me of the presence of a different life, of another way of seeing." Eyes are given voice, and the idea of alternative realities is embraced, another way of seeing. Here, eyes are seen as a transformative manner of communication that, in essence, convey messages so meaningful that transmit different conceptions of life itself. In this way, symbolism portrays mutability as a limit experience. Vision becomes passage between human and axolotl, self and other. Moreover, the narrator confronts deeper tensions of identity and consciousness when he says, "I learned in the same moment of believing myself prisoner in the body of an axolotl, metamorphosed into him with my human mind intact, buried alive in an axolotl, condemned to move lucidly among unconscious creatures." This passage reveals the paradox of mutability. The narrator's body has changed completely, yet his mind endures. The mutation is the preservation of the mind in spite of the transcendence into another body. Finally, contrasts and shifts show how sudden changes in structure highlight the transformation of the main character. They also depict the instability of identity and the fragility of the boundaries between humans and animals. For example, the narrator says, "No transition and no surprise. I saw my face against the glass. I saw it on the outside of the tank. I saw it on the other side of the glass." This passage shows a complete transformation of the character, as well as the narrator's existence on two distinct realities, that of the axolotl and that of the human being. It's a climatic moment that culminates an instantaneous transition. Taken together, these passages exemplify the paradoxical nature of mutability in Cortázar's work. Language works as a powerful, compelling tool to show the character's instability. Imagery facilitates the construction and understanding of the varied elements in the story, and contrast and shifts close the gap in the transition between humans and animals. The story illustrates how mutability shakes reality and experiments with identity, approaching the protagonist toward a limited experience at its finest. In Cortázar's AXOLOTL, transformation is completed from different angles that clearly demonstrate that mutability goes beyond the mere physical shift. It reevaluates identity, it confronts the whole idea of existence. The author successfully utilized strategic conventions to immerse us in mutability as both confusing and fascinating, lucid and limiting, and at the same time enlightening and redefining.